Hi everyone, welcome back. So let's talk about webhooks. So what are webhooks, and where do we need them? Why do we need them, right? Uh, and how can we use our own configured webhook in any of the features, actually supported features on Eden AI platform, right? I mean, there are lots of AI features available on Eden AI. So which of those features actually support the webhook system, right? How can we use the webhooks for those features? So we're gonna figure that out, and finally we'll also see how we can make an API call using the webhooks. So this is going to be an interesting video. So please make sure you're following it accordingly. And without any delay, let's get started. Why do we need webhooks, and what are the webhooks, right? So first things first, a webhook is basically a way for the Eden AI, to instantly send you updates when something important happens to the account, right? So let's say you have an AI process, a long, huge AI process that's been running. So I mean, it takes a lot of processing time, right? So without webhooks, you may have to come again and again to check the status of the job, if it is still processing or if it is finished or not, right? So this is actually a bit hectic. But when you configure a webhook and when you use this webhook on one of these AI processing jobs, you'll understand, because once a job gets done, or once there is a update required, it basically sends the information to the webhook that is actually associated, right? This actually saves a lot of time. I mean, because you don't have to check manually, because you'll get the information. So they are especially helpful when, let's say, you want to trigger another action in your own system as soon as the Eden AI finishes the job. Uh, you, these are pretty useful. So you might be wondering which Eden AI features actually support the webhooks, right? So typically, any asynchronous process where you'd otherwise have to poll for the status will offer a webhook option, right? For example, if you're doing a large scale text analysis or transcription tasks, or even any document processing, or even large scale text to speech processing, and there are a lot of video AI features available, right? Which actually take a lot of time to process. So all of these features, which take a lot of processing time, uh, actually support the webhooks, right? Because the Eden AI, it'll try to notify the app saying, yeah, the process has been done, something like that. So you can actually check the documentation, yeah, Eden AI's documentation for the full list. But frankly speaking, most AI endpoints that involve longer processing times and also asynchronous will let you register a webhook. Okay, so for this webhooks example, I'd like to use a workflow so that you can understand how the webhooks can be integrated on workflows as well. I mean, it's the same thing, but this seems pretty important because most of the time we work on the workflows, and so let's see how we can do it on the workflow. I've already created one. It's a pretty straightforward, simple one. So if you go here and see, yeah. So it's basically an input AI summarizer, text summarizer. That's the AI feature we have, and output. It's pretty straightforward, right? So if I run the workflow, okay. So this is the page we get into, right? API and live testing. But before testing the workflow, I'd like to explain some things here. So we can see there are two endpoints, right? One is launch execution, it's a post method, and there's one more method, um, get execution result, right? So there are two. So the idea is when you hit the launch execution, it starts processing. It takes the input and starts the processing. But the response will be saying it's still under processing or something like that. But it won't give the result. It won't provide the actual response you expected, right? So it gives you the status, right? But when you hit the execution result, once it is done processing, the execution result basically gives you the response. I mean, the result you expect. Probably the summarized answer for this for the input you gave, right? So basically, you are hitting the launch execution and hitting the get execution result again and again because you don't know when the processing gets finished, right? You are not aware of it. This is where the webhooks come handy, right? Because when you're using webhooks integration, you don't need to worry about get execution result because once the processing has been done, once the processing is finished, the webhooks, if they're integrated, you'll get the response automatically to the endpoint. Okay. So this is what I was explaining prior in the first starting of this video. So that's why the webhooks are very important and very useful. If mostly if your processing time is like very high. Okay. So I have configured a webhook endpoint using ngrok. I mean locally, which is running locally. So as you can see, there's an option to add a webhook, and if you click webhook, you can see, yeah, webhook endpoint updated, right? So for this example, I'll just go to something like BBC News, and let's go here, and I don't know, probably this, yeah. So let me copy this part, and let's go here, and let's paste it here, right? And if I hit test workflow, it started. And by the way, this is my webhook viewer. Sorry for this is an old one, so don't mind that. Okay, provider has returned an error. Okay, let me try with a different provider. Probably sometimes the provider, I didn't provide any fallback providers. That's one of the issues. So if I see, if I take the, I don't know, probably this, Grok 2, run workflow, and if I test workflow, okay, it's done. That was quick. So if I go here and if I hit refresh, see, so once it is done, you get the response automatically to the webhook you have integrated, right? So this is how it works in the platform side. But let's say if you want to implement this through API, how can you do it, right? So let's check that out. I've written a small, fast API based project. So we'll go through it and let's see how it works. So this is a simple fast API based project. Okay. So there are two files I've created. Main.py file. It's basically the webhook receiver file, right? This is where I configured my webhook locally. I used ngrok, and if you can see, there's this post endpoint, right? Eden AI webhook. So this is where it basically acts like a listener, right? So the idea is whenever there's an update from the Eden AI's side, the idea is to is this endpoint to listen to them and respond. So so that's it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We get an acknowledgement saying, yeah, webhook received and processed, something like that, right? And then yeah, so I've hosted it. I mean, it's running locally on PVCon. And if you are using the ngrok as well, make sure you run the ngrok http command. So in order to create a file, I mean, it creates its own app and it forwards it to the local host, right? So that's how it happens. Okay, so this is the main file. Again, it's pretty straightforward, and this UI is the one which you have seen prior, simple UI where you can see all the responses, right? And the launch scraper or I mean, don't mind the name; it's a wrong naming, but so this is basically the AI summarizer launcher, if you remember. I mean, I created a workflow and I used the same API, the code snippet from the from the workflow, and I've used it here. And so this is the code, right? So we basically provide the webhook URL along with the workflow ID, everything in this particular you know project, and it's also running right now. It's running locally right now. So everything is like on point now. So let's run this and see how it works, right? So yeah, this is an example I've taken from the BBC again. Something Donald Trump says Ukraine is ready to begin peace negotiations, something. And this is the webhook URL I gave, right? And if I hit send, okay, results will be sent to webhook, and yeah, it's 200. Okay, that means it's sent. It's been sent, I think. Right. See, the status is processing and respond to the webhook. That's what we wanted. So let's see. Let's go back to the UI and see if we received the response or not. Okay, so we are on the UI back to the webhooks viewer, and if we hit refresh, see, got it. So this is what we got from the API, right? This is the result. I mean, it's a summarized content. So yeah, that's pretty much how we can implement or integrate, you know, webhooks for the APIs in the APIs. So I hope it's pretty clear and it's pretty simple. So as I mentioned before, I mean, there are a lot of documentation available online on the Eden AI. So just make sure you check that out as well. But I kept it as simple as possible, as naive as possible. So if you guys really understood this well and liked it, thank you so much. And I'll see you again.